I mean, me and you went to.
Hey, we're back on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel for a special edition. I guess it's the Rock Fantasy Files, whatever it is. We're here on this show to talk about the spring of 2024 concert blitz, which kind of, if you live in the North America, if you live in the North, I mean, here in the Northeast, where we're by New York, I'm about 60 miles north of New York City, so we can go to Albany, we can go to Philadelphia, we can go to Connecticut. We can go and hit tours sometimes repeatedly, which I did once on this. We'll talk about, but you can hit a bunch of shows, and we always seem to get rocked from April
Yep.
through maybe like what, end of May, and
Yep.
then it seems to lull off, and maybe
And
you
then
get
picks up again September, October. I always say
yeah,
those are the busiest times of the year for our neck of the woods.
and you
Always.
try to. And you go, oh my God, like I want to see that band, but wow, they're playing the same night as this band. And yeah, so we went through a lot of that. So I figured I'd do a little episode, and I invited Chris, who we have on the channel before, of course, from Pardo, Sea of Tranquility, Hudson Valley Squares, and did a million things way before he did that with all the different magazines and whatnot you've worked for. So welcome on. I think I'm gonna let you go first because I've got a whole list of shows here, which is a big one. And we have Tony Dio is going to join us in a little bit too. He's doing another episode, so he's going to hop on about 5 or 10 minutes. So, how about we let you kick you off? How was your spring concert blitz, and what'd you see?
It, it was busy, Steve. Holy shit! Especially the month of May was nuts, which I will go over. But yeah, I'll be honest, it was busier than ever. I had to take a lot of days off from my day job to hit all these shows and a lot of half days, and I really felt like I hope nobody from work is listening. I felt like I didn't do much work wise for the whole month of May because I was just going to so many shows, and exactly like you said, luckily, in our area here in the Hudson Valley, we have access to New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Long Island. So it does make it easy to try and catch as many shows as possible. I'm sure there's something I missed, but I did pretty good this spring. Um, my first show, which was actually my first show of the year, was March 30th, going back quite a few weeks at the Gramercy Theater that you and I love going to see shows at.
Mm-hmm.
That was headlined by Girl School, which was a bucket list band for me. I had never seen Girl School, and the opening acts were Alcatraz and Lillian Axe. And Alcatraz is another bucket list band for me. Lillian Axe was not so good. They're a cock rock band from the 80s, but man, Girl School and Alcatraz were great.
Mm.
I really enjoyed that show. I got my usual seats in the back. Gramercy usually has excellent sound, and it was a really good turnout. And this is the Girls School farewell tour.
That's what I
So
thought. Yeah, I thought that I got to see them way back in the day in the
yes, they
States. And don't quiz me on what tour it was, but it was early in their career. And I got to see them in the clubs then. And I was an absolute fan of Girls School. And unfortunately, I have not seen them in recent years.
yeah, they come over every so often, like every
Hmm.
5-10 years. And it was just one of those bands I just always missed,
I
and
used to
they
have
were
a
great. They were excellent.
I used to have a
Uh,
crush on Kelly Johnson. Yeah,
oh
rest in
yeah,
peace.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
Hmm.
that was a killer show. My next show on the list, you were few seats away from me on April 18th. Steve and I went to the Toyota Oakdale Theater in Wallingford, Connecticut, to see the opening night of the North American Judas Priest tour. And that was Judas Priest and Sabaton, and that was an excellent show. I'm not the biggest Sabaton fan. Steve is a much bigger Sabaton
Yeah,
fan than
yeah.
I am, but I will give them credit. They were highly entertaining. They had the fans engaged. They
Hmm.
had this huge tank thing, and they had machine guns on stage and gas masks, and the singer had a flamethrower. I mean, they were very entertaining. And I thought Priest put on a killer set
Mm.
list.
Yeah, they sure
I mean,
did.
The only thing for myself that was a little bit of a bummer, it seemed like for the last 20 years or so, like every time I see Priest, they seem to pull something out of the hat, like an old song that I'd never heard them do before. Like I know when one of the times in Albany they just decided to do Hot Rockin' for some reason. Not
Hmm.
my favorite song, but I was like, holy shit, this is so cool that they're doing this. That was the only thing that bummed me a little bit on this new tour. No old songs that I hadn't seen, but they were still great. Rob sounded phenomenal.
He sure did.
Holy shit! Maybe having the rest off in between the European tour to the North American tour, but man, he sounded killer.
I thought much better than the last time I saw him, which was like at the same venue, which was in, I think, was it 2022, the fall of
2022.
2022? And I
Yes, and
thought that I mean, they were good then, but I thought it was like on like the top of the game this time around. Rob was.
agreed. There was a buddy of mine, Al Horta, who's on Facebook and does his own YouTube stuff.
Hmm.
He actually recorded the entire 2022 Priest show that I was at, and I thought it sounded good when I was
Hmm.
there. I did notice a few times that Rob was cracking or missed a
Hmm.
line here and there live. But
Yeah.
then when I listened to Al's tape, holy shit, you could really hear the imperfections that Rob was struggling with in 2022. Whatever was going on then, I don't know, but man, in 2024, yeah, I thought Halford sounded great.
I thought in the back of my head, and God knows if it's true, but KK's Priest had just come around. I didn't see that tour. But did that give them a little extra energy? Hey, KK's Priest just came through, and we're Judas Priests, and I don't know. Did it
It
give them
could
that
be.
little extra to, you know?
It certainly could be, and that was the other show. That was the one show that that I could name, Steve, that I wanted to see this spring.
Hmm.
And with all these other shows going on, I couldn't make it.
Hmm.
But I do have tickets for KK's Priest and Accept in September.
Okay.
That'll be one of my many September shows. But
Yes.
yeah,
We'll do a
Priest,
whole nother episode come
absolutely
November
come the
on this
fall.
one.
Yep. Then May 3rd, I went out to Huntington, New York,
Yep.
to the Paramount Theater
Hmm.
to see Queensryche and Armored Saint. And as exactly what Steve was saying, I went out to this show because I couldn't make it for one of the other shows. Armored Saint was excellent as always, and it was interesting because like the next day after my show, John Bush had to miss a few shows, and they had to pull in a replacement singer.
Wow. Wow.
Um, but
I
the
heard that.
show
I heard that he missed a couple shows. I didn't realize that they still played with someone else.
I believe they did. I know when this happened a few years ago, they used the singer from Dangerous Toys.
Oh, wow.
So, and that was one of the shows that I saw in 2022. I saw Wasp and Armored Saint, and it was Armored Saint with Jason McMaster from Dangerous Toys, and then John Bush did like maybe he could do one song. I think he
Okay.
one or two because he couldn't do the
Interesting.
whole set. But Queensryche, this was the first time I'd seen Queensryche, I guess, since I saw them twice opening for Judas Priest in 2022. But man, they did an unbelievable set because they did all four songs from their self titled EP and then their entire Warning album from start to finish. I mean, it was like the dream Queensryche set list
Hmm.
because there was a lot, even though I've seen Queensryche many times with both singers, there was a ton of songs in this set that I'd never seen them do
Oh,
before,
man.
and they pulled it off perfectly.
Yeah.
I thought they
I
were just
I saw
fantastic.
that tour at Starland, which I'll go in
Ah,
my notes. But yeah,
there you
saw the
go.
same tour in Starland. I think that might have been before your gig, but yeah,
I
Armored
think it
Saint were
was.
good, but Queensryche just owned that
Oh yeah,
night. Yeah.
crushing. Yeah, just unbelievable. On May 7th, I went back to Long Island. Haven't seen a show in Long Island in years, and I went twice in the same week. I went to the Patchogue Theater, which was a very nice old school theater, to see a double headliner of Uriah Heep and Saxon.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
Uriah Heep was very good. You know, I'm not the biggest Heep fan. I only saw them a few times before with opening for Priest, but I thought they were really good. Saxon, I haven't seen them since also their last tour with Judas Priest because they haven't come back to America since then. But they were on the road for their new record, Hellfire and Damnation, and they were just fantastic. They did a few new ones, and man, just tons of
Cool.
classic after classic. Denim and Leather, Strong Arm of the Law, just everything you can imagine. Biff still has it. This was the first time I've seen them with Brian Tatler from Diamond Head. My buddy Sean and I, we had front row center, and
Wow.
every time Biff was like, "What do you want to hear?" Sean just kept saying, "Am I evil?" And I knew they weren't going to do it, but that would have been cool if they did. And I'm sure the place would have went nuts if they did. But you know, who knows? Maybe in the future.
Hmm.
But I specifically had to go to that show because on this I think it was that night the Saxon show. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was a Saxon show and Uriah Heep show 20 minutes from my house on May 10th, but I had already tickets that night to go back to Wallingford, Connecticut to see Amon Amarth, Obituary, and Cannibal Corpse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you saw that show at a
I saw it
different
in Philly.
location. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it at the Fillmore.
Um,
Yep.
and it was my first time again seeing Cannibal Corpse in like 5 years. I missed their tour with Mayhem, but they to me they absolutely stole the show.
Okay.
Um,
I thought
Amon
they were
Amarth,
great too.
yeah, Amon Amarth were good, but I was a little bummed. I talked about it with Steve. Amon Amarth had none of their pyrotechnics. They still had the
They didn't have
massive.
any in Philadelphia either. Maybe it's
Yeah,
just the tour this time or
could
the
be. Maybe they're like,
facility.
like, listen, Iron Maiden used to do it every so often where they were like, you know what, we're going to save the money. We're
Mm-hmm.
not doing the pyro this year. So they still had the massive ships and the big lighting rig. And they were
Battles.
very good live. And yeah, they had the Vikings battles, but they did
Yep.
not have any pyro. I thought Cannibal just was absolutely crushing. I thought Obituary was really good, but they played a really weird set list. I don't know if you remember it, Steve.
Yes, I agree. We talked about this last night. A couple of friends of mine, how
Yeah,
Obituary played a lot of new stuff.
a lot of new stuff and a couple obscure ones. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen Obituary where they didn't do Slowly We Rock.
Mm.
I mean, it was just
And
weird.
they had a short set, so it's like 30
Yes.
minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it was like 30, 35 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
It was not long, but yeah, they were great. Seen them, you and I have seen them a ton of times.
Yeah.
So that was May 10th. Then May 17th, I went to a venue I'd never been before. This was at Mickey's Black Box,
Wow.
which is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Wow. You're
So
out with
that
the
was,
Dutch country,
yes,
the Dutch
uh,
people.
absolutely. My wife and I do like to frequent Lancaster. It's fun out there with all the Amish people and
Yeah.
the shopping and the buffets and the farmers markets. And funny
Yeah.
enough, a couple people did recognize me from Sea of Tranquility, but
Cool.
I stayed at there's a Rock Hotel right there next to Mickey's Black Box, and I
Really?
taught. Yep, and it's like they have a whole compound where they have like a rock club, and they have a rock hotel, and then they also have sound stages where
Well,
bands can, and this is what they want. They want bands to come and rehearse and do their full production at this facility.
wow.
So they have autographs up all over. I mean, this place it's not a hard rock hotel. I think they just call it the Rock Hotel
That's
Limits,
interesting. Yeah. Cool.
but it was more of a rock hotel than the Hard Rock because, the Hard Rock plays rap all the time.
Yeah. Nowadays.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. But May 17th, I saw the band Galactic Empire, which is a really weird band. It's kind of like Guar, but for Star Wars. So they started out
Sounds real
as
interesting.
like if you could picture like a semi heavy metal band where they just do instrumental versions of like Star Wars theme songs, but they're dressed as Star Wars characters.
Wow.
So they have a ton of videos on YouTube. That's where I first heard of them. I don't think they even have any albums because they
Hmm.
only do covers.
Okay, yeah.
When they actually tour, though, they they have to wear costumes that look like they're in Star Wars. I'm sure for copyright reasons, but it was still really cool. I mean, these guys just, it's a five, six guys in the band, all in Gwar type Star Wars costumes, playing all the Star Wars theme songs. It was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
The next night, May 18th, I was back at the same venue, which is a very cool venue, to see L7. That was
Wow.
the alt punk band, the
Yep.
all girl band from the '90s that I'd never seen. It was a bucket list band for me. They were great. I mean, the ladies are older now, but man, I thought they were just awesome. May 21st, I was back in Albany for again my second time seeing the Judas Priest tour. Again, Judas Priest and Sabaton. Steve was at
Yep.
that one. I saw Steve. He was super close for that
My
show.
buddy landed a front row. I bought a third row and I went up to the front row and I never had to leave the front. So I was leaning on the stage. I do have some
I
footage.
saw you. Yeah.
You were talking about someone taping a show. I didn't tape the whole set, but I taped a good portion of the Judas Priest and the Sabaton set from that night. And I do have that up on the channel if anybody wants to dig
Nice.
in and take a listen.
Yeah. The show again was great.
Hmm.
I don't know what more you could say. I already
Rob
heard
still
that they
sounded great.
Rob still
This
sounded
was the
great.
next to last night of the tour too.
Yes, and I think there was only one change in the set list. When we saw them on the opening night, they played a deep cut. You don't have to be old to be wise from British Steel.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you and I saw them in Albany a month later, they dropped that and replaced that with Sinner. So
Which
it
is
was
better
fine. It
for
was,
me.
yeah, I was glad to hear both, the both options. But yeah, I thought that was great. Then my last three, this one could have been my favorite, which was not at all what I expected. On May 24th, I went back to the Gramercy Theater in New York City and I saw Death to All.
That's right.
And holy shit, I, I was just completely blown away. If you don't know Death to All, it's the Death tribute band made up of a bunch of ex members of Death. And they were doing two nights at the Gramercy, both nights completely sold out. And they did, I think, 16 songs a night, and there was no repeats. So
Crazy.
the first night they did all of Scream Bloody Gore and a bunch of other songs, and the second night they did the Sound of Perseverance and a bunch of other songs. And I'm not the biggest prog guy, but I really do like the Sound of Perseverance. I
Mm.
think that's my favorite Death record.
Okay.
And I mean, they played it from start to finish, and it was note perfect. I mean, it was awesome. It was intense. I know I said it to Steve afterwards. I know this could be considered sacrilegious, but I saw the real Death with Chuck, and
Mm.
I think this was actually better.
That
They
is crazy. You
they were
might
so good.
watch the comments.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, but listen, I only saw Death once, and that was on the Leprosy tour. So
Okay.
in Chuck's defense, that was early in his. I think
Sure.
that was his first national tour.
Cool. Yeah, yeah.
So, I'm sure he got better live later on, but
Of course.
man, Death to All was incredible. I went back to the Gramercy the very next night, and I think this was the worst show on my run, not because of the band, but just because of really where I was sitting. I went again back to the Gramercy for the Abbott show.
Yeah,
Abbott, the ex-singer of Immortal. Now, for the Death to All, I was in my usual seats, which are in the back,
that's where I
like
was.
in the balcony, and you get a great view, and you're near the soundboard, so the sound in the concert venue is perfect, and Death sounded stellar.
Hmm.
When I went to the Abbott show the next night, you saw where I was, Steve. I was super close. I was literally feet away from the stage,
There you are.
like on the left.
I love those seats where you were.
The seats were great for the view, but the sound sucked. It
Really,
was,
even for Abbott.
yeah, it was very distorted, very overblown.
Oh.
It just the sound was just not there.
Yeah.
Couple times too, because Abbott didn't introduce every song. Sometimes I was like struggling. I'm like, oh wait, which one is this? Because I'm trying to make it
Because you were
out.
maybe because you were so close to side stage. Sometimes that happens
Yes,
at shows. Yeah.
that's my thing.
I usually have a good experience up there, but it's unfortunate.
And that was really the only
I
negative.
wanted to
And then
trade. You could have traded with me that night.
yeah, I probably could have, but I figured, well, let me give it the one shot. And then the other thing that was weird, Steve,
Hmm.
because we were so close, literally feet away from Abbott. Like at one point, I yawned, and he looked at me while I was yawning in the middle of
Wake
whatever
up!
whatever, and he kind of shot me a dirty look, and I'm like, oh fuck. Well,
He
listen,
didn't,
man, I was really tired. I've been to all these shows, man. I'm
you
old.
didn't tell him you were there the night before.
I should have, man. I mean, if he brought it up, I'd have been like, "Hey, I'm fucking burnt, man." But I mean, it was very cool to see Abbott again.
Mhm.
I was supposed to see him last, I think, in 2020. It was a tour
Mm.
of Abbott and Mayhem, and it got canceled because of COVID.
That was coming into the state. They were on their
Yes.
way to the States or started that tour because
Yeah.
onto others were on the thing. And I interviewed I guess Gabe from that band, and they were on, they had bought the merchandise. I remember Mayhem was selling the merch online. I
Yes.
saw Abbott, I think you were there too, at the Gramercy in the fall of 2019. They were warming up there with Obituary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I,
Because
I
I
did the
saw.
meet and greet for that one. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I've seen Abbott solo 3 times now, once for each record. And yeah, he's still great, and he still plays a ton of Immortal, which is
Oh,
awesome.
he does a lot of them, more than I
Yeah.
expected.
And the interesting thing, I hope he brings it to the States. I don't know if he will, but now he's doing a run in Europe where the tour is actually called Abbott Plays Immortal,
Yes, I
where he's
saw that.
only playing Immortal songs.
Hmm.
I'm like, wow, I'd love to go to that one. So we'll see if
Cool.
we get that. And then my very last show, which I'm glad it was the last one because, fellas, I was fucking tired. This was May 30th. This was a new venue for me. I'd never been to, but I highly, highly recommend it. This was the City Winery in New York City. So it's right off the
Oh,
West
yeah.
Side Highway,
Okay.
super easy to get to, and it's a very fancy place. It is a winery where you're at a seated table with wine goblets and everything. They have a full menu, and you can eat and drink while you watch the bands. So I saw the Italian horror prog rock band Goblin.
Oh, that's
They
right.
they played the Italian version of the film Dawn of the Dead, and the band Goblin was under the movie screen, and they played music over the movie whenever the Goblin music came in,
Hmm.
and then as soon as the movie ended, then Goblin did an hour set of their own songs, but their own songs were songs from other Italian horror movies like Opera and Tenebrae and Deep
Wow.
Red. So that was just phenomenal. That was a great way to end my spring summer concert series. But yeah, I highly recommend it, Steve. The City Winery. That was
Now there's a
great.
city winery that opened up here too. It must be owned by the same
Yes,
people,
I I
which
I was
that's
there as
done.
well.
They do concerts, but it's more a lot. I think there's a lot of some originals, but I see a lot of the metal tribute bands coming through
Yes.
there.
Now I went to the City Winery in the Hudson Valley
It's like
to see
Montgomery.
a Montgomery, yeah, to see a Van Halen tribute band, and it's very similar setup.
Unchained was there, right?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, they're
I went
great. They played the
about a
Orange County
couple weeks
Fair a
ago.
couple of years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Excellent band. But yeah, definitely a great place to
Cool.
check out.
So I guess it's time for me to start my end. Look at Tony Dio's here
There's
too.
Tony
So
Dio.
Tony, what we're gonna do is Chris just gave his list. You'll have to watch it on the replay, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
give my list, and then you're gonna give your list, and then we'll be back on here doing a regular Rock Fantasy Files when
Right.
that's
That's right.
done. So we're trying to get this running. So mine actually started at Quinn's Pins. I book shows at a local club here at a bowling alley called Quinn's Pin. It's an entertainment center. I started on April 6th with the Hudson Valley Thrash Bash, and that featured a tribute band, Damage Incorporated. And we had some local thrash metal bands because I like to book we book a tribute band, but I like to book some original bands to open up, which a lot of people don't do. So I had some original bands open: Fire Haze, Crucial Pain, and Scarlet King, and that was April 6th. Saturday, the 13th, I hosted another tribute night, sort of, with new metal band, Diamond Eyes, which was a Deftones tribute, American Steel, which are a great young band if you like, definitely for parties. They do Pantera, Slayer, all that stuff. It was Sad Witch Collective. My national act started, though, on April 18th, a show we talked about a little bit with Chris was there. I went and visited him after the Sabaton set. I actually taped the Sabaton set from that night, and it's got a ton of views on the channel. Like, somebody picked that thing up. I think there's like 10 or 20,000 views on the channel. So I did the whole thing. I was right up front for Sabaton. And of course, so I'll echo what Chris said. Judas Priest were on fire that night. I thought they were strong as hell. The crowd was loving it. And I mean, Rob sounded great that night, as if he had a chip on his shoulder, per se. Even he was just on fire. So that was great. Saturday, April 20th, quickly, it was record store day and 420 at my record store. We had the Kiss tribute Psycho Circus in town at Pins. The following week on the 27th, this is when things heat up for me. I did a 12-hour hardcore fest, hardcore and some metal bands, called the Hudson Valley United Throwdown. And we gave all the benefits, all the proceeds to Pets Alive. And we raised, I think, like $1,400 for the local animal shelter. I can't list all the bands, that there was a ton of them, but we had World's Demise, Burn the Ships, Pure Chaos, Rest Assured, Servant of Sorrow, Silent Equals Death, Concrete Ties, Fire is Murder, Sick Bay was a few of the bands we had that night. April 28th, I got in the car with a good friend of mine, and we decided to, after being up all night, slept a little bit. We headed to Brooklyn, to the Warsaw, for the cancer culture, what a tongue twister, over North American tour, with the U.S. return of Decapitated, had Septic Flesh, Cataclysm, and a Legion on that tour. On the way down, I'm driving in my car. My friend Troy went with me. About halfway to New York City, we stopped to get gas. We smelled this hot brake, and we're figuring, well, it's the car in front of us. No, we pulled in, and one of my brakes were locked up in the car. We had to turn around, come all the way back to Middletown, get his truck, but we still made the show. And Decapitated, and that whole show, Cataclysm, I thought Cataclysm were amazing. I hadn't seen them in years. Septic Flesh is one of my favorite bands. It was great to see them, but Decapitated put on this great set. And I tell you what, they were the loudest band that I've seen in years, I think. My ears were ringing. I had earplugs in. I always wear earplugs at shows. And my ears were ringing so much when I got out. You know how you get outside and you're trying to talk to your friend or something, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like an air raid siren going off.
And it's bad when it's still going on the next day. That's the
Oh,
worst.
it was going on a little bit the next morning. Yeah, I went to bed, and I think I might have had one drink, so I wasn't like drunk and head spinning, which is even worse. But Decapitated, great show. Then we took one night off on Tuesday. I went to the Starland Ballroom in Sayreville to the Queensryche Origins tour, which Chris already talked about, so I won't go into too much detail. And that was just the two bands. So they had Armored Saint warm up, and they did a classic old school set of stuff. But Queensryche come out, and man, amazing, just doing that set list. I'm almost a little disappointed at the end of the night when they did their encore that they didn't do a couple new songs, because I love the new material. I think that when he came into the band, it just gave that band so much energy, and it brought them back, because I gave up on Queensryche with Tate years ago. They kept putting out disappointing albums. And then a few years ago, I think it was like the 2019 album or something, and somebody's like, listen to that Queensryche album. I put it on, it made my top 10 of the year. So The Verdict. So Wednesday night, the next night, I was off again. I went down to the Wellmont Theater in Montclair, New Jersey for Camelot with their Awaken the World North American tour. Hammerfall, which was one of my favorite bands, as Chris knows, was the main support. And Ad Infinitum opened up the show. And they're a Swiss band. Melissa Bonney fronts the band. symphonic metal band who I didn't even know before I went, and I thought they were great. They had a strong following on a Tuesday night. It wasn't a sold out show. It wasn't super packed, but a lot of people knew their music, and a lot of people were singing along to the lyrics. And then she did double duty that because she filled in on songs, duetting with Tommy from Camelot. Because Camelot, if you're not familiar with Camelot, is a very epic band. Like they have like the set of a castle. It's operatic metal. Everyone would
Symphonic
think,
metal.
yeah, symphonic, operatic, whatever you want to call it. You would, as was Ad Infinitum, and having Hammerfall, which is more power metal. It made a very interesting night, but Hammerfall sounded great that night. Like I had a friend of mine that likes them, said, "Man, I don't know if I've heard them sound better lately. They sounded great." It was, I think, their second night of the tour, but Camelot were great that night too. And even with I had seen them once in 2019. I didn't think I'd saw them before. It's like then I realized I saw them at in 2019 at the Best Buy Theater with Sonata Arctica and Battle Beast. So I got to see that tour again. And Friday, May 11th, I traveled down to Philadelphia to a club I really dug. It was the Underground Arts to catch the Insomnium tour and the Omnium Gatherum. Omnium Gatherum was with them too, which was one of my favorite Finnish bands also. And Welder Run was there from Boston. They kind of reminded me of Opeth in a way, and kind of very proggy. And they were very entertaining too, but I was right side of stage. It's a small little club. There's no barriers or anything. And it
Yeah,
was
I've been there before.
very entertaining night. But Insomnium actually killed it. I mean, the one guitarist from Insomnia did not make the tour, so they had to fill in. And he's just, you're getting that a lot lately. I see with a lot of European bands that it's hard to get all the members to come over, whether it's financial reasons, but it was killer. Somnium killed it. Omnium Gatherum killed it. I did the meet and greet. Then Saturday, May 12th, I came back to Middletown and I did Cobra Calf, which is an Iron Cobra band. It's like a cover band that does a gig with Chris Caffrey of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Sabotage. They do this a couple times a year where you get to pick a set list like 30 days out. They'll give like 70 songs that you can pick. And I say, I want to sing that song. So they bring up guest singers all night. Some were from local tribute bands. Some were guys reading off their phone. But, it was a fun night. And Monday, May 4th, I took Sunday off. Monday, May 14th, I was back to Philly. Got some cheesesteaks at Tony Luke's, which is, it's not called Tony Luke's anymore, but we went to the Metal Crushes All Tour at the Fillmore, which, of course, Chris talked a little bit about, was Amon Amarth, Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, and Frozen Soul. I absolutely love that venue. I don't care if I got to drive 2 hours and 45 minutes to it. I'll take it over New York, going to Brooklyn sometimes. It's just
Yeah, that is
when
a
you
great
get there,
venue.
it's very comfortable. You can upgrade upstairs. It's like leather sofas if you want to relax, and it's just a really nice venue. As is the Brooklyn Bowl that's next to it, and we had such a good time that night because we saw the whole show. I have some friends in Philly because I go to Philly for shows a lot. So after the show, we partied at this barcade, which is right around the corner. Everybody knows how much I love pinball. So we were hanging out there with all these people that were at the metal show, just packed into the barcade. We were getting some snacks. We left at like after 12, got back to the Middletown, I think 3:30 in the morning, but we didn't want to leave. It's like, this is way too much fun. We're playing pinball and I got to visit with some old friends. So I thought Amon Amarth actually killed that show. I love Amon Amarth, though. I've seen them. They've toured. I don't know if this was a direct tour from Great Heathen Army, but they've been touring, cycling off that record now. I saw them with Obituary before already because they were with Carcass, Obituary, and Cattle Decap
Yes,
at the same venue.
I see.
Uh,
I saw that one at the Hammerstein Ballroom.
And then last year I saw them. They were on the full North American tour, them and Ghost
Ghost, yes.
outside like an amphitheater. So I saw them then. And I mean, they never disappoint me. Some people say, well, it's the same stuff. They played it. Yeah, but to me, I like all that Amon Amarth. I love that melodic death metal style. So I think they stole the show for me, but I agree with Chris. Out of the other bands, Cannibal Corpse, and I'm friends with Terry Butler and I love Obituary, but I think due to their set list, Cannibal Corpse came up and took no prisoners that night. Where Obituary, I love the new album, but they played a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
And Zombie Stomp, if you're only doing a few songs, maybe change that up with something from Incomplete or something. That's just my point of view.
Yeah.
So
It
if
was a
Terry
weird set.
Butler or Robin Mason might be watching it, she's gonna beat me up when I see her next time. But Robin does all the merch for Obituary, and she was there, so it's nice to see her. Then a couple nights later, I hosted a band called Psychoprism with Quinn's Pins, and this band is really good. If no one's ever heard Psychoprism before, they're a local band. The first time we had them was like last Thanksgiving, like Black Friday. They did a food drive for us, and Bobby Blitz from Overkill showed up and literally showed up to see them. And he said, these guys should have been big. He goes, he was talking about sending out their demos, one of the record labels at the time. And they do not disappoint. They're kind of like a power metal band. The guitarist is like Yngwie Malmsteen, though. He like the guitarist rips. They got keyboards. They're with the band called Unknown. Final Siege was there, and Maidenhead. That was a Friday the 17th. Saturday, I got in the car and I drove 2.5 hours at 2:45 to Foxwoods Casino Complex, which I didn't realize was that big. I get to this place and it's like its own city. And I saw something that Chris would have hated, but I loved it because it was Mudvayne, and I like Mudvayne a lot. I saw Mudvayne last year on the tour, which was like a little Ozfest, I called it, which was all these like kind of new metal bands. But Mudvayne were there. POD was there, another favorite of the like new metal scene from back in the day. There was some weird guy that you would have hated, Chris. There was a guy I couldn't hear. It was really bad sound to me, called Hero the Hero. There was some black dude with his shirt off, like hip hop rapping with metal
Wow.
vibes. And that one was pretty bad. I was walking around the venue and a Killer's Confession opened up. And I said, these guys look familiar. I sent a picture to the guy that works for me, Frank, and he said it was a singer from Mushroom Head that left. And I saw Mushroom Head years ago. But guitarist Greg Tibbett of Mudvayne could not play the show due to a family emergency at the last minute. So they almost canceled the gig. But the touring rhythm guitarist, and he does backing vocals with them live, Marcus Rapper, he took over the duties and handled the show very well. And a couple of days later, I'm seeing Marcus tagged into some photos that these guys were taking next to me. I met these photographers, and Marcus actually lives up by Syracuse and sells cars for a living. And I wrote back and forth with him. It's like, wow, fellow New Yorker, I got the record shop, and we were talking because Mudvayne are actually on tour with Megadeth this late summer, fall. And they're coming to Bethel Woods, which is the original Woodstock site here, about an hour from my house. And I was telling him, oh, you're coming right down. He really said he wants to come check out the store. So hopefully he does, and I get to hang out with them. So Tuesday, a couple of days later, I went to Albany. So I've been to Connecticut. I've been to Philly. Keeler was back. He was on tour. It was pre-pandemic form. I'm still paying for it on my credit card, but I went to the MVP Arena for Albany for a front row experience of the next to last stop of the Judas Priest Sabaton tour. I thought Sabaton were much better that night than they were when I saw them in Connecticut. And I was up front for that. It seemed like they just had more energy. And even the crowd in Albany was pretty much into Sabaton, I thought. But Judas Priest came out, and Halford sounded amazing. So it wasn't just me and Chris saw him on the first night of the tour. He still had that power. A few weeks into it. And then my final one of this thing where Chris was there and he was on front row. I was back in the cheap seats up in the Gramercy. If you guys never been to Gramercy, because people watch this from all around the world, many people probably haven't. The Gramercy is an old movie theater in New York City. And it has a slope floor. So if you're standing towards the back of the floor, you can still see the bands, which I like that. And they have a little section on the left of the stage. Well, you used to be able to just go in and they for $20 they'd give you a free beer, and if you get there early you can sit there. But now there's pre-selling. But Chris was right up front, and I was up in the back because they still had like not a balcony but a raised seating area with some old-fashioned theater
movie
seats,
theater seats.
movie theater seats, and I sat up in there, and that was well, for on that
May
day
25th.
actually, yeah, that was May 25th. We loaded up the crew earlier because a couple of my friends that went with me, Ben Worth and my friend Troy, we went to Coney Island first. So we drove out to the Brooklyn and we did the amusement park and visited the Coney Island sideshow and had fun, rode some of the rides out there. Then we came back. It was Abbott, Black Anvil, Imperial Triumphant, and Last Gasp. It was a 4-band thing. And I thought Abbott was really good. The sound wasn't too bad where I was, but I think someone else complained about the sound because I did film it. I was having some problems with my camera too. One of my microphones wasn't really functioning, so I didn't get a lot of left end on it. But I did tape the Abbott set. Black Anvil, I always find enjoyable. I'm friends with those guys. I like them. Imperial Triumphant was kind of weird, Chris.
Very weird.
Like they were dressed
Weird.
like my friend said they were dressed like the Statue of Liberty.
It was yeah. It was like two dudes, right? It was just they were a 2-piece.
I think it was a 3-piece.
Was it a 3-piece? Okay,
It-
yeah. They were wearing to me. They were wearing like C-3PO masks from
Something
Star
like
Wars.
wow.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're from New York City too, I found out. And the first band didn't do too much for me either. Unfortunately, I missed a couple shows that I planned on going in this time period. It was the Incantation tour, and I promised John. I even took the day off from work, but something happened with work that day, and I just couldn't make it down there. And I wanted to go see the Battle Beast Blackbriar tour, but I just
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
make
me
it to
too.
that. And you told me you liked Blackbriar, and I didn't know
I
who they
do.
were, and I put them on. And I figured if like Jonas Rensky had a wife, that she'd be perfect for it. Like to me, that it reminded me of Catatonia a little
Yeah.
bit. But I
It's
tell you what, especially live, I watched some footage of them live, and they're much heavier with the live, how the style and stuff. So I'm a little disappointed I've never seen them. They were from the Netherlands, and I did
Yeah.
not see them. So that's my list. As Tony can give his, and yeah, we got about 15, 20 minutes tops. And
Yeah, yeah.
I bought a ton of t-shirts, so I'm just gonna show them off while Tony's talking.
Awesome. Support the bands. That's awesome. Yeah.
I support
So
the band.
my my spring concert series started off about March 12th. So I'm going to start off in March. March 12th, I went to Baltimore, Maryland, to the Rams Head and saw KK's Priest with LA Guns and Burning Witches.
Yeah.
Fantastic show. KK's Priest, Ripper Owens on vocals. I mean, he played a good mix of stuff from his most recent and last solo records, as well as a bunch of Judas Priest classics. LA Guns, a lot of people are like, why are they on this bill? But LA Guns is huge in the Baltimore area. So the place was packed between the Priest fans and the LA Guns fans. And LA Guns is one of those bands that gets thrown into glam metal, and they're more like Guns N' Roses meets like AC/DC or something. You know, it's just rock and roll more than anything.
Yeah.
They got a lot of cool songs. Burning Witches just kicked the show off. I mean, they're full blast heavy metal. One of the best new bands out there for sure. Just put on, and they have had a fill-in guitarist. They had Courtney Cox from the Iron Maiden.
Oh wow!
With them now because the girl she replaced, I think she's out for some reason. Not sure exactly, but so came on from that, drove home. Next day, drove to Raleigh, which isn't far, and saw Tesla. They played at the one of the like little theaters there in Raleigh, not arena, but like a theater indoor place. And great show, just hit after hit. Excuse me. They had a band called Kurt. It's a guy's name. His name is Kurt Dimer or something. He's some actor guy. He's got this band. I've seen his name pop up. He's opening for a lot of different people. Didn't care much for them. They didn't really didn't do much for me, but he had a killer guitar player named Sammy Bowler. He's just a great guitarist. And turns out Tesla hits the stage and there's no Frank Hannon. I'm like, where the hell's Frank Hannon? Who's this? It looks like the same guy from the first band. And it was Sammy Bowler filling in for for Frank Cannon. Frank had to go home for a family emergency. I'm assuming it had something. His father-in-law is Dickie Betts, and Dickie died about a week later. So
Oh
I
yeah.
assume that maybe had something, and he knew he was going to have to go home. A friend of mine is the monitor man on that tour, and he knew he's going to have to leave and go. And he had already started working with Sammy a few days beforehand. And man, Sammy just went up there and just took it, man. He did a great job. And they had a great show. And it's still pretty much it's still the singer and the bass player from the original band. They Jeff Keith and Brian Wheat. They actually had Mick Brown from Dawkins' brother is playing drums for him now. And he's a really good drummer. So moved on had a couple of days off from there. I actually took that whole week off from work because it was my birthday week. So I just took off. And on my birthday, I went to Richmond, Virginia to the National, and I saw Municipal Waste, Ghoul, and Necrot. And there was a couple other bands that opened. We didn't get there in time to see them. By the time we got there, it was a little bit late that afternoon. And Municipal Waste always delivers. Just great thrash band, great show. Great to see them, on a big stage. They got production and stuff now. They got props and stage props and stuff. They got, garbage cans with waste pouring out of them and stuff. And and that's their hometown as well. So, those guys, started out playing some little rinky dink hole in the wall, 15 years ago or whatever. And now they're, playing the headline in the big place in Richmond there. So that's pretty cool. Ghoul put on a great show. I'd never seen them before. They were really good. They had a lot of cool props and almost like Gwar type characters that came out during the set. And Necrot, great, just cool death metal band. Just got great riffs, cool show altogether. So about a week later, I was back in Raleigh at the Lincoln Theater and saw Voivod and Prong. And it was a Saturday night, place was packed. Voivod, just put on a great show. They actually headlined that night. Prong opened. Prong, great band. I've seen them a bunch of times over the years. Had a lot of, forget how many cool songs they had, because I had Beg to Differ and what was it, Cleansing, and those ones from back in the early days. And they played a bunch of stuff. They didn't play one song they didn't play that kind of surprised. They didn't do Lost and Found, which I thought was kind of odd, because a lot of people know that one, and that was used as Headbangers Ball intro music as well. Voivod put on a great set, played, just a good mix of stuff from their career, even played Nuclear War and Voivod off the first album. So I was like, yeah, they played some of the, the early stuff. That's really what I wanted to hear. So yeah, another great show. Then a couple days later was back at the Lincoln Theater again for Girls School, Lillian Axe, and Alcatraz. And Girls School, great set by those girls. I'd never seen them. I've always wanted to see Girls Schools. That was a check off the bucket list there. Denise Milford and Kim, they're still in the band, original members. Got Tracy Lamb from Rock Goddess on bass, and of course she was in the band at one point as well. She was back. I heard she's already left since then, since the show I saw. Jackie Chambers, lead guitar, great player. Great set, good mix. They played all their classic stuff, and then they played some stuff from their new record as well. Lillian Axe, never been a huge fan of them. They put on a good show. Alcatraz, now they were surprised, because you've got Alcatraz basically with the keyboard player Jimmy Waldo is the only original member. Graham Bonnet has left, of course, but they had Giles Lavery singing, and he's a really good singer. Giles was actually Graham's manager, and when Graham left, they brought in Doogie White, and basically Doogie couldn't do it anymore, and he just told Giles, he said, why don't you become the singer, of the band? And because he's sang, if you guys watch the Metal Voice every once in a while, he's the guy that does the intro song to that's him. So he's got a great voice. He's singing for Warlord now as well. But yeah, they played all the classic Alcatraz stuff, and they have Joe Stump on guitar, and he is an Yngwie clone. Matter of fact, a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in a while told me later that night, he said, I saw your Facebook post about this show, so I decided to come out. And he goes, I walk in and Alcatraz is playing. I'm going, hey, that's not Graham Bonnet. Well, at least they got Yngwie. he said, then they introduced the band, they called him something. I said, well, that's not even Ingve, you know, but he thought it was because Joe Stump, if you're familiar with him, he dresses and he throws the poses and he plays just like Ingve. But it was a good show. Really enjoyed it. And that was another one. You know, I'd seen Graham Bonnet's Alcatraz one time, but it was cool to see this version as well with Jimmy Waldo. Got to meet Jimmy. I got this Alcatraz poster back on my wall. That's a promo poster. I actually brought it and got Jimmy to sign it because Graham had signed it like years ago. But from there I went. Let's see, April 30th. About a week later, it was back at the Lincoln again. They've been getting a lot of shows there. Lincoln and Raleigh was Raven, Vicious Rumors, and the band was called Luther or something like that. I can't Luthero or something like that. I can't pronounce the name actually. But they had singer issues. They have a female singer. She's kind of aggressive vocals, and she had blown her voice out, and she had laryngitis, so she couldn't sing. So the band played an instrumental set. They were really good. Vicious Rumors, great set. They've still got Jeff Thorpe and Larry Howe from the original band, which I've heard Larry's left since the tour's finished. He's out now, but they were the two original guys still there. Had a great set, played all the classic stuff, played a lot of stuff from their early records, and Raven closed it out, and Raven's never put on a bad show. I've never seen them put on a bad show. They're just a great band, classic band from a new wave of British metal. The Gallagher brothers still got it, and they've got this guy Mike Heller who plays with Fear Factory on drums. He has kicked those guys into gear. I mean, that dude is just one badass drummer. So they play a lot of their fast stuff and all, and just a lot of their classics and some stuff from their new record as well. So about a week later, well, actually a few days later, I was in Baltimore, Maryland, or Columbia, Maryland, at the Meriwether Post Pavilion and to the M3 Rock Fest, which is the pretty much like people call it hair metal or what do you want to call it, glam rock or whatever. It's 80s rock festival is pretty much what it is. And it's a 2-day festival, and it was great. We had a great time. Except it was freezing cold, and we had to bundle up, and thank goodness they sold coffee this year because I was drinking more coffee than I was beer. Just try to stay warm. But saw Child's Play, Aldo Nova. First time I've ever seen Aldo Nova. He was great. He only played like 6 songs because he had a short set. Jack Frost, you guys might know Jack. He's playing guitar with Aldo Nova now. Yeah. Doro had a great set. Chris Caffrey played with her, and that was really cool to see. Saw Lynch Mob from George Lynch, of course, from Dockin, and they had a good set. And Quiet Riot was a surprise act of the day. They no original members, of course, except they have Rudy Sarzo back in the band. And you have Jizzy Pearl from Love Hate, who we interviewed, Steve.
Yep.
And he sounds a lot like Kevin DeBrow. They've got Johnny Kelly from Typo on drums, and then Alex Grassi's their guitarist, who's been in the band for like 20 years. But, they were probably with the band. I would have took a break and walked around or something. But it was cold, and I just kind of stood there and watched them. And I'm glad I did, because it was a great tribute to Quiet Riot and the fallen band members. They talked when they did Thunderbird. They talked about how Rudy Sarzo told a story about Kevin writing that song about Randy Rhoads leaving to join Ozzy Osbourne, and when he came back and they recorded it and everything, they played that, and they had the video montage of all the Frankie Banali and Randy, and of course Kevin DeBrow, who passed as well. But then they did a little medley in the set that kind of paid tribute to everybody past. They did Blackout in the Red Room by Love Hate, and they went into this medley of Crazy Train because of Rudy's connection, of course, with Ozzy. And then they went into Black Number One from Typo Negative. So you got Rudy Sarzo playing the bass line to Black Number One. Cool as hell to see. But anyhow, Last in Line played. Of course, I know you guys know Andrew. Yeah, and he they have a great set of Dio stuff. I love watching Vivian Campbell in that band because he's playing Les Paul through Engel amps, and he's going up and he's just getting that feedback. He walks up and he loves getting that feedback. He don't get to do that in Def Leppard. I mean, Def Leppard's all pretty much all like, technical board stuff and all, But Queensryche closed the set out that night. I mean, actually, it was Rat, Stephen Piercy doing a set of Rat. He had a great band, did all the hits. Queensryche closed out that night. They were great. They did the first EP and the full first album in full. Next day, there was Pretty Boy Floyd. It was a band called Cold Sweat, which I was really looking forward to seeing. It's Roy Cathy is a good friend of mine. He sings in that band. The old band that was Mark Ferrari from Keel's old band, managed by Tony Dio back in the day, got back together, and they were the only band on the festival all weekend. They had all 5 original members. Faster Pussycat played. Y&T, excellent, always great. Striper, good set by Striper. They did a tribute to CJ Snare from Firehouse, who passed away recently, and played All She Wrote by Firehouse, because the bass player that's in Striper now used to be in Firehouse. Night Ranger played great, never disappointing. Great show by Night Ranger. And I was actually going to cut out early and not stay for Bret Michaels, but we did. And he put on a hell of a show. It was really good. He had Dee Snider with him. Dee Snider came out and did I Want to Rock, We're Not Gonna Take It with his band, with Bret's band. And it was just a fun party atmosphere for the ending of the show. From there, the next May 11th, I saw Annie Sing, which is a legendary punk band from North Carolina, been around for years. Saw Annie Sing in Raleigh at a place called Tap Yard in Raleigh. Local band Kiff opened up. Knowledge is for Fools, fun party band. May 14th, I went to Charlotte and saw Judas Priest and Sabaton, and like Steve said, Sabaton put on a great show. Judas Priest just never disappoints, even with people talk crap about him, about being a tribute. It's not the same without KK and Glenn. It's great. I mean, they put on a great show. May 25th, I went to Chapel of Bones, which is a new venue in Raleigh. Great heavy metal club in Raleigh, Chapel of Bones. Saw the Incantation tour. Got to see John for a few minutes, talk to him. Incantation put on a great show. Exhumed played great. I've never seen them. Love it. They got all kinds of theatrics and stuff going on during their set. Loved it. Couple of the bands that we missed earlier, but we did get there in time to see Morbicon, which is a good black metal style band that has Dave and Landfill from Municipal Waste featured in that band. And we saw Ringworm, and they were great. And then last but not least, last weekend, I went to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and saw Symphony X and Heathen. Never seen Heathen before. That was a bucket list band. They were great. Met Aggression's drummer, Ryan. He is the touring drummer for Heathen. Got to meet him, and they put on a great show. So did Symphony X, and so yeah, got a few. Last weekend I saw 38 Special. They played to top it off. They played a really nice theater about 30 minutes from here called Weldon Mills Theater. Very nice place and great show, hit after hit. I mean, you don't remember how many hits those guys have. You hear them all back to back. And Don Barnes is the sole surviving member in that band, or I think a couple of them are still alive, but they don't play in the band anymore. But he sang all the hits anyhow. And they got Jerry Riggs on guitar, who was in Pat Travers back in the 80s, but he's also Riggs from the heavy metal soundtrack that did the song Radar Rider, and they feature that in their set now. They actually play Radar in the set, so that was great.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I got some other stuff coming up, and actually going to see Bat this weekend. Ryan and Nick from Municipal Waste's band, they're playing with Necrot in Raleigh, and I'm actually going to the Maryland Doom Fest on Sunday to see Sirith Ungol.
Chris, I think he might have us beat.
Yeah, that was.
I thought the week.
I didn't think it was that many until I started reading them off.
And look, I'm just going to show a couple of the shirts real quick, and then we'll wrap this up. Even though I sell rock shirts for a living, I bought T-shirts at the show. Chris is shaking his head. This was the meet and greet from Insomnium. They actually called it Insomnium Gathering. So I got that one. And then I've got the Decapitated shirt.
Nice.
Oh, that's a nice one, yeah.
Yeah. And then I've got the Queensryche shirt. I got the Warning one. They had one for both the EP and that. I picked up the Warning. Cool. Daisy's in the way here. She's using them as a pillow. I got the Cataclysm, America versus Goliath, and I said I really thought that that was a strong set that
Yeah.
they put on. This is one that Chris is jealous. I even got a POD T-shirt. Chris, I bought one for Ryan
funny.
Scow too, so in
That
case
is
you're
funny.
worried, I think this might be a parking lot
Did
one.
they do Youth of the Nation?
They sure did.
Did they bring out all the little kids?
They didn't bring any kids out. So
That's
this is a parking lot. You know, Amon Amarth hit the big time because they have parking lot T-shirts
Yes.
now.
Yep.
Most of these bands don't have parking lot T-shirts, but Amon Amarth
Some,
has
you know,
them.
in some cases, the parking lot shirts come out looking really cool.
And here's the Septic Flush Tour shirt. Grease.
I've bought a few in over the years that were really neat.
And I don't usually buy white T-shirts, but I figured it might be a hot summer, so I've got an Abbott in white.
Nice.
Pretty cool, right? I'm running it down. I got a nice Hammerfall shirt.
Awesome.
Hail to the King is their new single. They did play that live that night.
Great band. Yeah.
This, I think, is a parking lot Judas Priest shirt too. It is actually, and it has Pitcher and Sabaton on the back.
They were selling that same exact shirt in Charlotte, North Carolina. So yeah, it must be a whole conglomerate of the bootleggers.
Then I got a
sure
Camelot.
Yeah.
I got a Camelot shirt too. What else? They're getting down to the nitty gritty. I'm wearing my official Judas Priest shirt.
I like
one,
that.
This one here is a parking lot Priest shirt. So I did have another one that I thought was very funny that we bought outside of the Fillmore. This is another Monomarth bootleg, but on the back it's spelt metal with a D.
Huh.
Metal.
Metal.
It's like gold medal flower. Metal across America.
Metal. Hell yeah.
All right.
So anyhow,
at least it's not 2 D's like, you know, metal.
No. So that's our story. So hey, that was fun. We'll have to redo this again in the fall after we're already looking at September. It's getting busy. I don't see October being as busy as other years, but it's probably towards being added. September. And hey, thanks to you all for watching the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. Tell us what concerts you guys have seen this spring. And it was an honor to have Mr. Chris Allen, one of my best friends, on the channel again. Hopefully we'll do something soon again. And Tony Dio, but they've been stealing from me, and he's now on the Hudson Valley Squares, I hear. What
I was on 1 week,
one or 2 weeks. But
tonight I accidentally double booked. I was over at John Gaffney's show doing something with them, but I had I just double booked and I forgot. You know, we usually do Wednesdays, so yeah, it was.
We made it, and Wednesdays are getting tough for me, so this is the week when I didn't have anything on a Monday. So we're actually going to be, me and Tony are going to be back in a minute. We're going to talk about Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. I think it's the 4th episode now. We're breaking this up.
Yep.
So we'll see you guys again real soon on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. For Chris and for Tony Dio, we'll see you next time. Stay heavy.